Hi everyone, Natu Myers here, back with another video. And in this video, I'm going to explain, some of the things that people don't want to talk about when it comes to taking risks when raising capital. Yeah, so when people raise capital in the quote-unquote cowboy way, when they just sell a deal to people and post deals on Facebook and things like that, because we had several people that we were corresponding with that got into doing some of that. And there are three big risks that people run when they work on raising capital and raising equity, like substantial amounts, without them actually making sure that they're legally prepared or that they're prepared from a pragmatic point of view. So let me explain. So number one, if that person that funds your deal, so if you post in one of these forums, Facebook groups or LinkedIn groups, and you just post the deal and then somebody just calls you and invests in it or whatever, and it's you don't have a proper way to intake that investor. Typically what can happen is that if something happens to that investment and the person wasn't made aware of all the risks, and we had one correspondent, for example, they were working on a few transactions, and the dividend distributions weren't coming, like the dividends that the investor would get, they stopped coming. And this was for some transaction. So the dividend distribution that the person who invested was supposed to get, it stopped coming earlier than when they thought it would stop coming. And so what happened is, there was a lot of concern. The person didn't start a lawsuit, but the person had the ability to. And typically the way that the Securities and Exchange Commission work and the Ontario Securities Administrators, which include, the Canadian Security Administrators, which include the Ontario Securities Commission and so on, and the Financial Conduct Authority out in the UK, and all these different securities commissions all around the world. The way that they work, and generally they operate off of, unless you're doing like a 100 million plus deal, they really operate more out of, response to whistleblowing and complaints. And then because when investors want to issue quote unquote a refund, the way that they do it is really, by starting a lawsuit, because it makes sense for somebody's investments of X million dollars to do a lawsuit for like 200 to 20,000 or 20,000, because the lawsuit is basically their version of doing a refund. And if the person finds that the expectations weren't properly set for that investor during the transaction process, then they can come back, and then they can leverage one of the securities commissions if you didn't, do everything properly, and come after you. And so sometimes this can take years. You look at different, people that it took years, but they still got bit in the rear. And what happened is, when you go on Google, people see your lawsuits. They use Pacer, they use all these different tools to see, the lawsuits and so on attached to your name. When people want to do business with you, the first thing they see on Google search results is a lawsuit. It's not really good. So prevention is better than the cure. So that's number one, making sure that you have an understanding of what's going on before you work on a large transaction, generally speaking, especially when it comes to equity. Number two is understanding in terms of the crypto hype. There's a lot of hype with metaverse, NFTs and everything. But in terms of that hype, there's one danger to watch out for. I guess number one is making sure that you understand the difference between a utility token and a security token. In other words, a utility token or a tokenized offering. It could be security token or tokenized offering. Because pretty much a utility token is an unregulated capital raising event. And in 2017, what happened is the founders at Ethereum, they created something called ERC20, which means Ethereum request for protocol, Ethereum request for comment number 20. So it's just a piece of code that allowed people to create their own tokens underneath Ethereum. And because of that, people were able to raise a lot of money by listing those tokens on exchanges. And because these tokens weren't attached to a company, and people were making promises that the tokens would increase in value, what happened is it was the same thing as a quote-unquote what the Securities and Exchange Commission calls a security. And because of that, it was found to be an unregistered security, because typically securities have to be attached to a company, but these were just tokens. And so what happened is the SEC started suing a lot of people left, right, and center. So that's one type of cryptocurrency. And the other type is, a tokenized offering. And so this may or may not involve, a token, but all it is basically getting a normal securities offering, so nothing new. They've existed since like the 1800s or whatever. Getting an old, offering and making sure that that old offering is, connected with a blockchain on a blockchain. So basically tokenizing some of those investments on a written legal piece of paper by putting the investments on either an exchange and so on. And so you can actually track how much you invest, and you're just using blockchain technology on top of the legal agreements. And so it's a pretty mundane innovation, but still an innovation because it can add more liquidity to private placements, because some people may trade it. But overall, it was pretty overhyped. And NFTs they're nothing new. Simply put, in the context of, a security, it's the same thing. If it's unregistered, people are going to say it's unregistered. And so my point is, make sure that you understand what's registered and what's not registered, because it takes time, but over, course of a few years, if an investor invests and they lose a lot of money, or, if there's a large capital raising event and the SEC just wants to use you as an example, they can come after you. And so that's number 2. And number 3 is understanding that you don't have to overpay when it comes to all these things, because there are a lot of lawyers that charge like $100,000, $50,000 for giving you a boilerplate, for you to protect yourself. And there are often many solutions, times when there's no personalized care when it comes to how they actually help you in the first place. So, just in terms of raises.com, because we see actual deals that get closed, we look at getting subscription agreements and so on from people that have actually closed deals and how they look like, so that we can actually have a practical way of doing it, rather than getting a legal agreement from somebody that hasn't actually closed the deal. And then after that, what we do is make sure that, there requires to be legal review, because at the moment in this video, we don't have any law firms underneath us. And so we just delegate. And so if you combine, understanding, working with people that have actually closed deals and, looking at the practical ways of people doing things, then you'll be in a good position. Because there's one thing to get excited and post deals on Facebook. And then there's another thing to also, get hyped about initial coin offerings and not know what you're doing. But if you make sure that you know what you're doing, you leverage people that have actually closed deals before, and you make sure that you're not making needless mistakes, either on the side of too much caution by overpaying, or on the side of too much rebellion by not paying a cent, then there's a nice middle match there where you're more pragmatic and more lean and frugal, but at the same time you're getting what you need to get done, and the point is you're focusing on raising the capital in a legal and compliant way without you wasting too much time on the minutia. But with this, if this makes any sense, welcome to the end of this video. And if you want to learn about raises.com, you just head to raises.com, and we'll see you on the other side.